Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Now we don't have the time barrier anymore. Technology has taken care of it. So it's a pleasure to be here with you with Kardec Radio and Spiritism, a closer look. I'm Luiz Lima, and I'm talking to from Florida, but Florida these past few days looks more like Alaska because of the weather. It's very not typical for us at all. Anyway, welcome to the show. Welcome to our program tonight. And tonight's closer look is on the book "What is Spiritism?" Yeah, this book here. And and then I'm preparing the program, and I'm thinking, who would be somebody that can join me on this journey here on this our program tonight that has to do with the book "What is Spiritism?" Well, we got just the person, and here she is, Angy Stewart. Angy has done covered the book beautifully. So, good evening, Angy.
Hello, Luis. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I think I've been following you on your program right here at Kardec Radio, and the way you approach the book. First of all, for me, the book is something unbelievable. The contents, the way it came about. We're gonna have the opportunity to talk about this, and it was just incredible how the book came about. And it's for me, it's a very, I would say, touchy piece of work because of how it was done and everything else. So I've been following you doing this, and I go, oh, she's the one. She's got to be here live with me. So thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. I really believe this book is so important to all of us. As I mentioned, talking to you in private, this book is important to the ones that know very little about Spiritism, but also very important to the ones that I already know Spiritism. They say they are Spiritists, but it's great for both because the ones that know very little will have a whole summary of the full Spiritist codification, all the books. And the ones that already know, they will have more knowledge. They will have a deeper understanding. It will benefit both of them. So it's a wonderful book.
Yeah, I myself, I keep coming back to the book. I keep revisiting the book because of, as you know, we prepare a lot of talks. We prepare lectures and talk shows. So
Yes.
we need to make sure that we have the basics covered. And every time I go back to the book, there's something new that pops up. There's
Yes.
something, oh, I never paid attention to this particular thing. It's just incredible. It's one of the smallest or shortest books that he wrote, but the amount of information and the way it was conveyed to the
Yes.
reader, it's just incredible. It's unbelievable.
No, and very few people know about this book. And when people say, "Oh, Kardec, yes, the five books of the codification," and not really. Kardec wrote many other books, and this is another one.
Right.
This is the Spiritist Review. This
Right.
is the first edition, 1858. Is in English, but Kardec wrote this for 11 years. So there are so many other books. And this, as you said, is like a summary. It's very easy, very simple book. And Kardec gave super strong information, lots of details in a very conversational way. So it's easy to understand. It's like a really, really nice piece of work.
Yeah, I just wanted to. You mentioned the Spiritist Review. It's not the topic today, but I just want to take the opportunity here. If you look at the five books that we call the basic Spiritism codification, they have an average of 500 pages each. That's the average. What is Spiritism? It's about half. It's 220, 225, so it's about half. So 500 pages is the average. The Spiritist Review has 4,600 pages. It's by far the most extensive work of Allan Kardec. And according to himself, it is part of the Spiritist codification. Most of us don't really pay attention to that,
Yes.
unfortunately. But that's another story for another day, maybe.
Yes. Yes, and it's also let's do another talk about the Spiritist Review, because it's also super full of details, many things that we never imagined. Yesterday I was studying it, and I was learning about the animals in Jupiter. I was like, wow, the amount of details is beautiful. It's really beautiful.
Jupiter and Venus too. He talks about Venus. It's fantastic. But so we can do this another day.
Yeah,
obviously we're going to do this some other
idea.
time. Okay, so coming back here, what is Spiritism? So I think the book is fantastic, and just to contextualize, when you take the supposedly first book, Spirit's book, it has 4 parts, right? And it has the introduction and 4 other parts. Now, let's just think about this in 1857. When you write a book, there's an introduction, usually a couple of pages or so, because, you know, you're just going to explain what you're going to do, and you're going to use existing references. Now, Allan Kardec it's writing a book, it's publishing a book that has no reference whatsoever. Nothing like that was ever brought to the public, or the knowledge for himself included. It was brand new knowledge. He just got to know that. So in order to explain in the introduction of the Spirit's book what he's going to write about, the introduction becomes like 100 pages. It's this thick. And it's huge, because it is necessary. He cannot say, as we know, this. No, there is no as we know. Everything is brand new. So the introduction became almost like a book. And then from that book, he develops that later, and it becomes What is Spiritism? So What is Spiritism is born from the introduction of the Spirit's book. All right? So
yeah, it's beautiful, because we know he was able to connect all the letters that he received from many mediums, because after, you know, most of people know how Kardec came into Spiritism when he was finally convinced to participate of the Turning Tables movement, and then he started writing questions to ask the spirits through mediums. Then he got all the answers of the Spirit's book. But there were lots of questions people used to ask him. And he already was finalizing. He had to publish the book. He's like finalizing, but there was all this huge set of questions that the people day to day used to ask him, or used to complain, or had like theories against it because of this or because of that. So that's like when this idea flourished, you know. After this book, I have to publish another one.
And it's interesting because he kept receiving these letters, and in the very beginning, he was responding to each letter in person. And go back to 1857, there is no computer, there is no copy and paste, nothing like this. So it was really a lot of work by hand at night under lower lights. We don't have the lights that we have today. So can you imagine, you know, the amount of work this man had to put in, plus the amount of letters he received. And we complain about junk mail, right?
And, you know, letters in different languages. And it was a blessing that Kardec spoke many languages, so he could actually understand, and he himself could answer in all the diverse languages. But as we saw in the movie, the ones that could see the movie, Kardec on Netflix, please go there and take a look. So you can see the scene that he's in this big table with piles and piles of letters accumulated, and he's answering. And when he was codifying the Spiritist book, we start thinking how amazing this man was, how intelligent, because he was able to separate the ideas in sections. And one section connects with the other. It's not something like, he was able to put everything coordinated. So beautiful, beautiful work, and amazing organizational work.
Yeah, there's nothing random. He had a logic behind it. Yeah,
exactly. No computers. It's like, wow.
And what I like about this one here is on the second part, the book has two parts. The first part are transcripts of interviews with people he was getting the letters from, and the second part is notions of Spiritism. And on that part, he goes straight, black and white, straight to the points. There's
Yes.
no, I'm gonna tell you a story and so on. No,
Yeah.
that's it. So he goes straight to the point. He becomes very focused. Well, he was the type of person who was very focused on what he did, and he wrote that way. As a writer, he was exactly that. You don't lose the focus when you read Kardec.
Yes, it's
You
true.
have to, 10 paragraphs later, you got to come back and say, oh, yeah, he was talking about this. There's no such a thing in any
Yeah.
of his works.
But I think he also learned this, a little bit of this with the spirits, because when we study the spirits book, we see that many times the spirits, they tell him, we already answered this in previous questions.
Yes.
So the spirits are kind of sharp.
Yes.
It's not that the Kardec forgot about the question, asked again, but because Kardec, with his scientific mind, he wanted to make sure he understood deeply in detail. So he formulated questions in a different way, but it was about the same subject. And the spirits was like, we already answered that. Go back.
He was actually cross-checking.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And the spirits are like, we are not going to repeat it. But that was very good. That was his way of understanding. Yes, this is the right message, and this is a spirit that I can trust. Because Kardec was always like making sure, the answers were the best possible to put in the book.
Yeah, and in a lot of times throughout his entire work, he will define Spiritism in a phrase, in a sentence, in different parts. And very interestingly, 95% of these times, he starts like this: Spiritism is a science and such a thing, or Spiritism is a philosophy and whatever else. So for him, because he started in Spiritism as a scientific investigator, he went to these meetings because he wasn't really believing that they were taking place. So he had this scientific mind investigating. So for him, from the get-go, Spiritism is a science. It's a science of investigation. And that's how he defines in most of his works. And in this book, right here, right? I like to show the book, I think, right? What is Spiritism? Yeah, there you go. He has one of these phrases that tries to define Spiritism. So I'm just going to read to you that's following us here.
Sure.
And then Angie can make some comments on it. So here we go. This is straight from the book. Spiritism is simultaneously a science of observation and a philosophical doctrine. Just parenthesis here, okay? The word doctrine in French does not carry the same weight that it carries in English. Doctrine in French means something that can be taught. It doesn't have anything to do with dogmas or anything like this. So it's a slightly different meaning. Anyway, and he continues, as a practical science, it consists in the relations that can be established with spirits. And as a philosophy, it entails all the moral consequences that result from such relations. And then he summarizes saying this one phrase that becomes a definition of Spiritism. Spiritism is a science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits and their relation with the corporeal world. Oh, what can you tell us about that, Angie?
Well, it's a beautiful definition, and we all have to understand it deeply. So when he's talking that when he mentions that Spiritism is a science and is a philosophy. You mentioned the doctrine is a science and a philosophy. The scientific point is really the observation. Kardec observed everything, every point. He tried to prove, disprove, to understand. So Spiritism is a science of the understanding. We cannot have a blind faith and accept anything. That's why when he wrote the Medium's book, that was really all his observations. The best book even is this one here. This is the all his mediumistic meetings that he wrote with details so people could understand how it was about, what the spirits were bringing to us. So it was like a observation, proving, disproving, and brought to him this solid understanding. And then the philosophical part. The philosophical part is the one that connects with our hearts. Even when we talk about the mediumistic portion of spiritism, the mediumship, the messages the spirits brought to us connect us with our morality, because they tell us all the pains, the sorrows, the troubles they lived while on Earth, and even in other planets. And then when they discarnated, what happened to them? So this was this beautiful understanding that brings to us. We have to learn with their experience. So we have to improve ourselves. And one portion that I like to think about too is that one time I was with Edivaldo Franco, the great Brazilian medium from Bahia. And I was with a friend, and she translated his long lectures. And then Edivaldo came to talk to me and her. And he asked her, was it difficult to translate? And she was like, yeah, because, Edivaldo Franco, he talks with a very specific word. Some words are very difficult. And he gave us a beautiful explanation, because I also never understood. Every time Edivaldo tells a story or he gives a lecture, he always starts with history. So he starts giving names, countries, stories that had a lot of comprovation, that you can just Google and you discover all the dates and the years and names. And then the second part, he tells funny jokes, he tells personal stories of his lives, and everybody is laughing. So he told us, why do I do like this? I do like this because I need to grasp the attention of the very scientific minds that are here or that will be listening to this. So when I talk about history, I give the names, I give facts. These people that are very scientific, they start paying attention. They're like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. And then when the scientific minds are connected, then I go to the jokes, to the funny stories, because this brings a great environment. Everybody will be laughing and understanding what I had brought before with the scientific part. So it's almost like Edivaldo also brings these 2 points all the time in his lectures.
Yeah, that's true. And Angy, what would you say that's your kind of favorite part in the book that you have covered so far on Kardec Radio?
Yeah, so the first part of the book, as you mentioned, is like these conversations, are just dialogues that lots of people used to go to Kardec and ask him thousands of questions. So he took the most important ones and he answered in deep details to make people to have like a broader understanding of what was the question. So I actually marked the one that I really like, and it is called "Disbelievers Cannot See in Order to Be Convinced." So what does it mean, disbelievers cannot see? So in that time, Kardec already had the mediumistic meetings, so where the mediums were going to be receiving messages from the spirits, and we're going to have this dialogue, this conversation with the spirits through mediums. But these were always very small meetings, private meetings, very different from what was happening that time in France, where the turning table was more or less like a joke, like a game. And so people used to tell him, how do you want us to believe if you don't allow us to participate of these meetings? So Kardec goes on with a long explanation saying, basically, you don't need to see a spirit to understand and to believe in this existence. It is not necessary. And then he goes in details explaining that lots of people that do not want to believe, they will see a spirit right here, and they will say, this was my imagination, I was sick, it never happened, because most of the time is their own pride. They don't want to admit that actually happened. But then he also goes on explaining that, when a person wants to participate in a meeting of this type that is so serious, just because of fun or just because of curiosity, this is not positive to anyone, because it causes interference. The energy vibration becomes different, and it makes this connection with the spirituality more difficult. So if we bring this to nowadays, didn't change much.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same thing. Lots of people come to me, to you, and say, you are such an intelligent person. You're such a nice guy. How do you believe in this craziness? I never saw a spirit. And then we are like, well, I never saw an atom, but I know it exists because our
Right.
scientists develop machines that we can look and
That's
we
right.
can see. And I say, I only see the little dots in the sky, but now science also helped us to understand through the electronic, what's the name? Forgot the not the microscope, the telescope, the electronic
Telescope.
telescopes. Not even Hubble is much more advanced. There are billions of planets. We have no idea of the amount. So we never saw with our eyes this
Yeah, that's true.
billions, but they exist. So the same thing is with the spirits. You might have never seen, but it doesn't mean they don't exist.
Yeah,
So
and I think there's maybe another point that it's worth bringing. Allan Kardec, he had to respond to these people who wouldn't believe. They would make fun of him. A lot of these letters were making fun of him and what he was saying and so on and so for him it was kind of easy to understand the person's position and reply accordingly, because he had gone
yes,
through that in the beginning of all spiritism in 1854, when
yes,
he was first invited to to go to one of these meetings. He goes like, "Are you crazy? You want me, right,
yes,
Professor Rivail? You want me to go to one of these things?" And you see, uh, the guy was his friend for 35 years. They knew each other from the days of the Institute of Magnetism. So after 35 years, he was surprised with this person, this friend, telling him this. And he insisted for 2 years.
yes,
Mr.
yes.
Fortier, he insisted for 2 years. One day, Allan Kardec said, "Oh my God, I can't take this anymore. Let me go and get done, get over with." And
Yes.
that's so he could understand exactly what
And
these people were saying that they don't believe, because he was one of them at a certain
he
point.
was one of the, and this is actually good because of the fact that he did not believe, he wanted even more research to make sure there was not some kind of trick or some kind of a joke. And there is a part in the book that we can read that he talks exactly about that. He talks that his good friend is inviting him to this meeting with this turning table, but everybody in that time was talking about having fun with a table that answers questions. And I'm sure he was like, what? No way, I'm not participating in this. And then he mentions of a person that if I'm not mistaken, his name is Mr. Pointier. And Mr. Pointier was a very loud person, and he was super excited with the meeting. And he mentions in the book, no, I don't really think when someone is very excited about something, this is really good, because sometimes the person is too excited with something that can be something that's not good. And then finally, he listens to Mr. Pointier, who was a much more central person with a similar character of Kardec, because he was not like
Yeah.
Kardec was a very not serious, but he was not a jokester. Kardec was more like I'm a scientist.
He was very technical. He was very
Yes,
technical.
yes. As you said, he's right to the point. There is no paraphrasing too much.
No, no. He wanted black and white answers, so he wrote in a black and white style, per se,
Yes, yes,
straight to the point. One of the things that's interesting is the Spirits book itself, first publication, is questions and answers, and that itself shows
yes,
the idea of a black and white.
yes.
You know, let's cut it to the chase, and you know, here's a question, here's the answer, and that's what it is.
And you know, the Spirits book is such an amazing book. It's so amazing that to anyone, the ones that don't even know Spiritism, you think about something that you know, you had doubts, you're curious. If you search, you will find that topic or something very similar. And every time we study that book, we get so amazed that in 1857 he had amazing answers from the spirits, that there was no type of a scientific base. What was some things that they were just proven recently.
Yeah.
Like
That's true. That's true.
years ago, something that was in 1857, the spirits were saying. It's like, wow. Just before we go, I wrote the dates here. I'm so bad with dates, but I just love to talk about this chronogram. So just for us to understand. So, you know, Spirits book was in 1857. Then came the first edition of the Spirits Review, 1858. And then came this book, came in 1859. So it's like 1 year apart. Kardec was a super busy man. He had 2 jobs and he was working constantly to Spiritism too. And then the Medium's book in 1861, so 2 years. And then the Gospel in 1864, Heaven and Hell, 65, and finally the Genesis in 1868. So it's amazing how, and you know, as you mentioned, all those books are like thick books.
500 pages, yeah. And he literally worked until the very last minute he was on Earth.
Unbelievable.
He died picking up a package of the Spiritist Review
Yes.
that had to be published.
And,
So
and,
then
and
he
this
fell
is
on the floor and that
another
was it.
this is another amazing piece that is also written in the book, in the historical points in the beginning.
Yeah.
He even mentioned that the spirits told him, you have to slow down,
Yeah.
because you are overworking your machine, your physical body. And then he answered, I can't. I have to finish this now. And the spirits tell him, you will come back again to continue. But he was like, I can't waste time.
Yeah, and here on What is Spiritism, the very first thing on the book is a short biography of Allan
Yes.
Kardec.
Yes.
So just a few pages, but it's worth it. Especially the purpose, I think that the target audience for this book when he wrote it was those coming to Spiritism, not knowing what it was, you know,
Yes.
what is this thing? How can I know a little bit more without going heavily into the
Yeah.
Spirits book, because it might be too heavy for the beginner. So that was the target audience. And that's why they included the biography of Allan Kardec right on the first page. So you get to know him a little bit.
And it's perfect. As a teacher, Allan Kardec was a teacher, and he knew that there are, for some students, something has to be a little bit more tailored because they need a easier way of understanding something. So that's really when this book comes, because a person that never heard of it, and a person that's kind of interested in the fun part of turning table movement in France, you're going to come with a book like this. I know. But then when you come with a little book, the person's like, okay. And another thing, we have to understand that in the 1800s, everything was about books. Didn't have internet, didn't have TV.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
people had to read. People had to read. So it's not that a book was something, oh no, I don't like books. No, you have no other way.
No option.
Or you read a book or you're not going to grasp any type of knowledge.
Yeah, that's where the knowledge was coming from. Yeah, that's true.
Exactly.
Angy, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It was very, very interesting, all these things that we discussed. At least that's what I think.
My
Hopefully,
God, I can't believe the time already.
time goes by fast. Can
That's
you
what I
tell
was
you actually told me you moved from Manhattan to Miami and you opened a new center in Miami. Can you tell us a couple of things about it?
Yes, yes. So I moved to Miami from New York 4 years ago, and during COVID, I opened a spiritual center in Coconut Grove, Florida. It's called Mia Inner Light. So it's a small center we opened recently. So it's very, very nice, and our work is all in English. So that's what we want to do. Like me and you, we are planting the seed for the non-Portuguese speakers. You know,
right.
Florida, you know, lots of Latinos, but you know, most of the people speak English, and we can help them to discover this beautiful philosophy that touches the heart of so many.
Yeah, and Angy is also one of the hosts here at Kardec Radio. She has a program every first Thursday of every month, and it goes from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern time, or whatever time zone you are, so Eastern time. And so, Angy, thank you very much. I appreciate. I think it was a great talk, a lot of information, and we encourage our listeners here, our viewers, to read the book, whether you are spiritist already or not. There's always something for any one of us.
Definitely read the book. And I also would like to encourage people to join your program. Kardec Radio has so many different programs, so many beautiful studies. So congratulations, Luiz, because your work is essential for all of us to spread this beautiful seed of spiritism in the hearts of the ones that do not understand Portuguese. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for participating. And we'll be here next week on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks.